Sport Diplomat with Tanner Simkins is proudly sponsored by Built, redefining hydration and performance. Hello and welcome to Sport Diplomat. Today we visit with wildlife conservationist, biologist, and enthusiast Micheal Lloret. He is one of my best friends, one of my lifelong friends, and for as long as I can remember, he's had an animal or a critter or a reptile, some type of exotic, funky looking thing in his hands. And he has followed his dreams. And that's what we're all about in Sport Diplomat and sharing these types of stories. We didn't have the best recording experience. I was in the middle of Mississippi on a business trip and I recorded in the car. I was pulled aside and safely parked, but please forgive the kind of moving cars in the background. And I was recording in the heat. I had to turn off the air conditioning so the microphone didn't pick up the flow. So we do what we can, and we did our best. But all that stuff is trivial compared to the great perspective and stories we hear today from Micheal Lloret. And he'll definitely be a return guest, so we'll get him again. Micheal Lloret, thank you for joining us on Sport Diplomat. Wildlife conservationist, biologist, jack of all trades when it comes to animals. Tell me in your own words the best way to describe the amazing work you do with wildlife.
Well, tea time. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. And as far as what I do, I'm a wildlife biologist, conservationist, like you said. Pretty much anything that has to do with animals is up my alley. I've always had a certain affinity for reptiles specifically, but I've worked with all sorts of creatures from, big cats to primates. But my main focus is definitely the reptiles.
Absolutely. For listeners who may not know, this episode is extra special to me because we have been lifelong friends for as long as I can remember. We've got photo evidence of it. Your mom busts them out sometimes, the early birthday photos where you're playing with the tortoises and the turtles, and I'm in there somewhere in the photo. So since then, of course, we have gone our own routes with our careers, 30 years later. And we're each kind of doing what we always thought we would do. I was always kind of the sports guy. You always loved animals. You loved reptiles. You'd take me on the hunts. We'd go after the iguanas. And so, like I mentioned, today's extra special because in all reality, and all joking aside, you're the best at what you do. You work for I'll let you explain it, but you do amazing work the crocodile initiative with the power company down here because they have some unique property that's kind of Everglades like. But in addition to that, you're on the news every day hunting anacondas. You're getting the crocs. So I think it's been very special seeing kind of your career come to terms and blossom and kind of watching you live your dreams.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been lucky, just like you, where I've been able to lean into my passion and go full speed ahead into what I believe in, and fortunately been able to find a way to make a living working with animals and doing anything I can here in South Florida to better impact our South Florida ecosystem.
Tell me about those early days, though, because I know it's been a family affair for you. I know your grandfather had always a love for animals and reptiles, and then your dad, and then you. Has it always been animals for you? Was there ever any other thought of kind of another career path? I know you played college football, because you've had a dedication to this since the jump.
Yeah, as you know, it's something that I've always said that I feel like I was born with. I'm extremely lucky where, I was very impacted by my grandfather, who is 95 years old and still keeping animals. To this day, still calling me all the time. Talking about his animals, talking about my animals, and then my parents that have been very supportive always with the animal career, and which can obviously be very frustrating at times. Living in a place like South Florida where you got to make enough money to survive, you got to make enough money to sustain your family. Animals has always been a passion, and what I always say is that's all I've ever known. So I've been able to stay true to my heart and go full speed ahead.
That's great. In addition to growing up together, we ended up at the University of Miami together too, and that's where you did your formal education, and then after that, bounced around in the wildlife industry, and then eventually settled with FPL doing this amazing work with crocodiles.
That's right. So I've been with Florida Power and Light for 5 years, managing the crocodile program. The American crocodile is the gem, one of the gems of South Florida, and most people don't even know that we have them. Right, all the time, I'll have conversations with people that may not know what I'm doing, and I'll say, "Oh yeah, we have crocodiles," and they'll correct you and say, "Oh no, we have alligators." Then no, well, we definitely have crocodiles as well. So it's amazing to see how many people don't even know what's in their backyard. But we have this apex predator that kind of moves in silence and secrecy, that lives all among our coastal areas. Given FPL's location in southeastern Florida, right on the coast, it's really ideal accidental habitat for the croc. And I'm lucky where I work for a company that funds all of this work and allows me to exercise my passion with continuing this amazing conservation project. And with those crocodiles, we deal with all the same issues that the national parks deal with, whether it's drought, or whether it's invasive species, or any kind of those South Florida issues. We have those problems as well. So it's a really fascinating place to work for sure. And then to be able to kind of have the American crocodile as my main focus is definitely a dream come true. As you know, growing up with me, I was always the crazy kid showing up with all kinds of crazy critters. But if you would have asked me 15, 20 years ago what I'm going to be doing in my life, if I would have said, chasing crocodiles at a nuclear power plant, I don't think I could tell you that, right? I just knew that without a doubt, I was going to find a way to make a living doing what I love. And that's working with wildlife, of course.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you definitely have an impact in the community in addition to the job, which is, terrific in its own right and unique and powerful. But I see you on the news doing your own independent wildlife work, or I guess supplementing the FPL work all the time. You're in the Everglades doing research, or you're being featured on documentaries. And some listeners may have heard about the python issue in the Everglades, which is always, kind of a viral thing that the national media picks up. You're one of the wranglers that go out there and get the pythons, and you've caught some of the biggest ones. So tell me a little bit about that fun element and what makes you motivated to, in addition to, doing the 9 to 5 with the animals, continue to keep your own animals privately and raise them and be at the top of like the cutting edge of research and any type of field work too.
Sure. So it's very much a labor of love. If you don't love this type of stuff, you won't succeed with it, because it takes countless hours, sleepless nights, early mornings, late nights, just tons of round the clock work to be successful. And that's what I always say, if your heart's not in it, it's just not going to work out for you. And I always like to say, the whole saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I hate that saying, because in my opinion, if you love what you do, you're going to work as hard as you possibly can until you get what you want and until you succeed in what you believe in. So I think it's quite the opposite. I get the idea behind it, but you know, putting your heart and soul into something and putting countless hours into it, that's still hard work. And that's the way I feel. And then as far as the media, I'm always looking to be a part of anything that can help educate, or help spread the positive word of any positive projects that are going on. Whether it be captive breeding programs, whether it be conservation work in the field, any of that stuff that's worthy of sharing and getting on that nationwide platform is really important to me, especially sharing accurate information. As we know, the way the media is nowadays, it's really tough to source accurate information. And what I always push people to do is do your own research. If you're going to trust what somebody says, make sure you've researched that person. Make sure that they have a moral compass. Make sure that they are the real deal and not just doing it for show or likes, or attention online, to better their own brand. It's really important that, as an influencer, we share accurate information, because if you don't, then we're all misinformed and we're all chickens with their heads cut off.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of my bullets, was the education versus entertainment and kind of these gimmicks that are out there. I know you're a purist and it's very important to you to get the accurate information because you love the animals and you love what you do, and you don't want anyone, for a lot of reasons. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've heard you talk about things like you don't want people to get hurt. You want people to understand that these animals have to be treated a certain way, etc. Because now I was looking at a couple of the analytics. These animal viral videos, whether they're exotic animals or even just like the pets, the cats or whatever, they're top 3, top 5, depending on what sources you look at, but they're one of the top categories of the most viewed videos on the internet. So you're definitely in a space that's getting a lot of attention, and I think that may be good and bad for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that, so that's news to me. I try not to get caught up in all of it. I just try to stay true to myself, share what I know is accurate, and hope that story is told appropriately and accurately. We can't always control what everybody else does, but just like any career, it doesn't matter what it is. You're always going to have people that have opposing opinions, or thoughts, and it's important that you, as the reader, the watcher, the viewer, the consumer, whatever you want to call it, does your own research, to be able to pull accurate information out. Because if we're all just sharing, misinformation, we're not in a good place, right?
Yeah, and you do it great. I mean, I know you're not really pigeonholing yourself into the social media, but I follow you, and a lot of people do, and the content that you put out is always top notch, educational, and also fun too. Like, you find a good balance. Tell the people where they can see some of your research or your work in action. How can they find some of your material?
Yeah, so I try to keep up mainly on Instagram. It's just my name, Mike_Lloret, so MIKE_LLORET. And that's my way to kind of bring people into my world. I'm not a big social media influencer or anything like that, but when I do share things that I'm doing, it typically is on my Instagram account. So anybody who's interested in looking more into what I do, I do try to bring people into my world that way.
Great. All right, let's do some fun ones, Mike. Okay, I'm going to rattle off some quick things, and you just tell me what comes to mind.
All right.
Iguanas or turtles?
Oof. That's a really tough one. I don't know how to answer that. There's so many different.
I know you love them both. I know you do.
Love them both. I can't answer it. I love them both for similar reasons and different reasons. They're both two groups of animals that are near and dear to my heart. Obviously, I work a lot with both of them, so I can't answer that one. Sorry.
I'll tell you a funny story to the listeners out there. I have a fish pond at my home. I have a love affair with fish, exotic fish, tropical fish, because of Micheal. He's also been raising fish, doing the fish business, is part of his wildlife, exotic animal fortitude. And he turned me on to it. And I've been raising the Oscars and the pacu and the koi and all these fish in my house. And Micheal came over and blessed the home with about 6 or 7 turtles. So I have a special connection to them too. And just sharing a little personal story. My family loves them and we're so grateful. I have a young daughter, Sienna, who loves checking out the turtles. So thank you.
Yeah, it's just an amazing thing to take care of another life, watch them grow, watch them thrive. That's a big thing for me, right? You're going to keep anything in captivity, make sure that you're keeping it under conditions where it's going to thrive and do really well. And, you're a testament to that, Tanner. You took in those turtles at all Florida native species, and you actually hatched out some of your own babies.
I was amazed too, because it was just nature doing nature. I didn't baby them or do anything. It just happened.
Yeah. So when you put your animals in adequate situations for them to thrive, they're gonna do what they do in the wild, and that's what happened in your pond. So that was pretty cool to see. You had some Florida red bellies there, doing what nature intended them to do. Florida native species that we could only be better if we had a million more of them. So the more the merrier. And I know your daughter Sienna loved watching those little babies, and that's just a really cool part of the process that really pulled me into what I do. Right? There's going to be always people that are against keeping animals in captivity and things like that. But as the human population grows, people in the middle of the city, some of their only ways to experience wildlife, especially if they're a child that maybe their parents don't take them to the park or take them to national parks, right? Maybe their only way to experience wildlife is maybe watching shows or having and caring for an animal themselves, right? So I'm a big advocate of responsible animal keeping. Learning from the animals teaches us responsibility, teaches us, creating habitats that simulate the native habitat of whatever animal you're keeping is so cool. And there's so many things to learn. As a child growing up, that was such a big part of my development. And I'm so lucky that I was always in a home where I was allowed to express myself in that way. So I always encourage parents, your kid's ready, try it out, do something pick an animal that you can responsibly take care of for the entirety of its life. And make sure that, it doesn't get too big for whatever conditions you may have for it, that you do all the research before getting it. But once you do, it's one of the most rewarding things to have them and care for them and be responsible for their lives.
Yes, those are good tips. I got 1 or 2 more fun ones, and I got a question about business, and then we could wrap up with some stuff that you got going on in your world. But Gators or Crocs? I think I know the answer.
I think I'm gonna have to go Crocs on this one.
Yeah, Crocs. What's the most? I don't know the term. A wild or exotic or unique, or what's been your favorite animal to work with over the years? Maybe the most extreme or the most intense. I don't know. Whatever comes to mind.
It's gonna have to just be American crocodiles for me. I'm lucky where I get to see them every day of my life. And I've truly been able to spend so much time better understanding them. And there are so many people that have come before me that have done the same for the entirety of their careers, 30, 40 years. I'm really just scratching the surface of this thing and figuring them out and how to put them in the best positions to produce more, produce more, be as healthy as possible, keep them safe from things like road collisions, from any kind of environmental disaster. Just it's going to have to be American Crocs. I've been able to dedicate so much of my time to them and still feel like I have so much more to learn.
Right. In addition to working with FBL, you have your own company called Faunalogic, and I think you promote conservation and just wildlife education. That's something that I've been following the growth of, and it's been fantastic to see the great work you do. Even though I don't want to say on the side, but it's in addition to everything else you do, which is so much. So, the growth that you're still able to, put into it has been really fun to see and follow. So congrats on that. Tell me a little bit about that, and maybe any other projects you got going on that you might want to promote, or maybe work related, that now's your time.
Sure.
Tell the people.
So Faunalogic is the name of my company. Really, I act as an environmental consultant, whether it be invasive species removal, habitat design, any kind of consulting work that has to do with the environment, or working with animals, I am probably interested in. So you can imagine being in South Florida, in kind of the world that I'm in, that company just kind of encompasses so many different things. You get people calling you for all different types of services, and we stay busy, that's for sure. There's tons of opportunity to work with, wildlife in South Florida. And a lot of people, that's a question I get a lot, is how do I get started, or how do I get my child started? And the answer is get them outside. We're in a time where we're all consumed by computers, phones, iPads, tablets, whatever it may be. And so many of us are losing touch with that outside world. So I'm a big advocate of get outside, pay attention to what's around you, the lizards running up the tree, the butterfly flying in front of your car. There's so much right in our backyards, right in front of our faces that we're not looking at. And Faunalogic is very much conservation based. We're always looking for any kind of growth or development within that space, whether it be captive breeding projects, habitat design, ideas for, dealing with wild animal issues, field work. We've been part of some international projects as well, which is really exciting. And just anything that can help native species thrive, we're all about.
And it's a family business too. You didn't mention that you and Jocelyn, your lovely wife, are also out there wrangling together. I see on Instagram the videos, and she's doing great too. So just wanted to throw a little shout out to her. But hey, Mike, thank you for coming on Sport Diplomat. We were chatting before we started recording that, and I've explained this in previous episodes, but those are just branding words. We talk about so much more than just sports. It's really, public interest, and anything that really falls under the media, entertainment, or larger industries, and animals are definitely becoming more and more followed, like we chatted about. So thank you for coming on, because when I thought of a Sport Diplomat, really, you're the definition of the type of guest I was really trying to cover. Someone who takes their profession and uses it as a door opener for so many more opportunities, and just seeing the amazing work you do with animals that have led to this opportunity and this research and this job and this exposure and this, field work. It's really nice to see. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. You and I go way back. So love seeing your growth, and was a pleasure to be a part of this.